Hi everybody, I'm Daniel Salt and welcome to part 3 of our saxophone series. Today we're talking about tonguing. And tonguing is one of the things that when I work with saxophone players, I always have to fix. I said in the last video that I usually have to fix people's reeds, but tonguing is one of those things that is really hard to teach and really hard to do right as a student because you can't see inside your mouth to see what's happening. So as band directors, we have to make guesses, and as students, we have to make guesses about what's happening in there and give you instructions, or you have to kind of figure out how to do it without us being able to see it. And that makes it really, really tricky. And for that reason, I think a lot of times band directors, including myself, we overcomplicate tonguing, especially on woodwind instruments and especially on reed instruments. We give a lot of explanations that are like, okay, you've got your reed and your tongue needs to go this way, or something kind of abstract like that. But really tonguing on saxophone, we can do really successfully and really consistently if we know what words to tell students and if we know how to explain it to students in a meaningful way. So one of the compromises that a lot of band directors, including myself, sometimes make is we'll say, okay, you need to use the do articulation when you want to play connected. So that's like do, 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 do. And you need to use a to articulation when you want to play separated. To, 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 to. And those work great for brass instruments, and they work okay for woodwind instruments. And so because it kind of works for everybody, it's easy to make that compromise as a teacher. But this is one of those moments where we can take maybe an extra like 2 seconds and we can give our woodwind players a different articulation that will be much more helpful to them, and especially single reed instruments like clarinets and saxophones. So instead of a do or a to, on saxophone, the syllable that I recommend is to say thoo, T-H-O-O, thoo. And when we're saying that, it sounds kind of sloppy. Thoo, 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 thoo. It's a little bit muddy, but when we translate that into the saxophone, it's going to be really, really clear. So try this with me and you'll understand what I mean. Say thoo a few times. Thoo, 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 thoo. And it's not like a Daffy Duck kind of thoo, thoo, thoo. It's really small th. Thoo, 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 thoo. Notice how your teeth feel on the end of your tongue. Thoo, 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 thoo. You got to feel your teeth. That's the most important part. The bottom of your front teeth, right there. Thoo, 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 thoo. Whisper. Now whisper, but tighten your stomach like you're doing a sit-up, so we get some power. So when we put the saxophone in our mouth and we are ready to play, all we have to do to tongue is to make the reed feel like our teeth felt. So I put my tongue on the reed, and it's got to feel like my teeth for thoo. And if I push my tongue into the reed for the TH, and I pull it away, that's tonguing. And we can even sort of hear the note start without blowing at all. And that's how effective this method of tonguing is. So I'll do just the tongue motion without any air, and you'll still, I hope, be able to hear the note start. That little pop, that's actually the reed starting to vibrate even with no air pressure at all. And that's because ideally when we say thoo, hoping you can see this okay, there's this space between the reed and the mouthpiece on the end, right? And when you say thoo, the reed is compressed into the mouthpiece. And that's actually an airtight seal. So no air can get into the saxophone at this part. This is that TH part of thoo. When I do the ooh part, that reed snaps back into place away from the mouthpiece, and it already starts vibrating because it has that momentum. And we can even hear that with my finger. So that's really that thoo motion, okay? So when you're telling your saxophone students to articulate, no matter what, if it's smooth or connected, we use thoo. And the only thing that changes is how long we let that air last. So if we want to play separated, we say thu, 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 or probably whisper. Thu, 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 thu. If we want to play connected, we extend those O's out of thu and go thu, 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 and whisper. Thu, thu, thu. But our tongue does the same thing. So when you're telling your band, if you're a band director, to articulate, you can take an extra maybe like 2 seconds, probably out of rehearsal, and say, brass players, we're going to say do. Woodwind players, we're going to say thu. And that will give your saxophone players a really clean start to their notes. And they won't play late, which is a huge problem in a ton of bands. I hear band directors all the time say, my saxophones are late and I don't know what to do. And this will fix that. And when I'm doing it for real, you can even hear that little pop at the beginning when I'm tonguing. And that's how you know you're getting the right result. So I know not everyone will have time in their band class to do an exercise dedicated to this, and I totally understand that. However, if you do have time to dedicate to a tonguing exercise in your band class, this is one that you can do to make sure your woodwind players, and especially your saxophone players, are tonguing the right way. So all you have to do is, you can do it on any note, or you can do it on the mouth and neck piece like this. You have your saxophone players start playing, or your whole band start playing, and then they use their tongue to stop the note. So their tongue will go back onto the reed while they're still playing. And of course, we would never do that for a concert setting. But for the exercise, we do it. Because every time you put your tongue back, it sets you up for the next note. So I'm playing, then I'm going to put my tongue back against the reed, and it's going to stop. Because the reed gets sealed against the mouthpiece. It gets pushed against the mouthpiece there. And then I'm going to start the note again. And stop it. And start it. And stop it. And start it. And stop it. Okay? And the key is that the entire time I'm doing that, I'm still blowing. But when it's stopped, no air will go into the saxophone because the reed is pushed up against the mouthpiece. So let me show you what I mean. And so every time I'm playing, I just take my tongue off and I stick it right back on. Thoot, thoot, thoot. But I'm still blowing the whole time. There's still air pressure. It's just that none can get it into the saxophone. Okay? So try that. Have your students blow the whole time, but have them stop. And if you get any sounds like this, you know that that reed is not stuck against the mouthpiece, and that will help you know that your students are not tonguing properly. So give that a shot if you have time, but really focus on that thu, 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 to get your saxophones a really clean tongue, okay? If you can do that, you're ready for the next video.